In fact, you could say that estate planning is even more important for the average person.
Why is that so?
Sometimes they don't ask, because if they ask, it almost feels like, what? You can't wait for me to die? You are after my assets already?
Trust makes sure that things are being given equally based on what the client wishes.
A trust can be expensive, but that doesn't mean that it's only for the wealthy who can afford trusts. Of the Grandtag podcast, Conversations on Wealth and Legacy. Welcome back to the Grandtag podcast, Conversations on Wealth and Legacy. Estate planning. Everyone knows they need it, but not everyone does it. And often, it's because of the myths that surround it. Some say it's too expensive. Only for the ultra-rich. A will is enough. I'll do it later. Today, we're debunking them, one myth at a time. Joining me today is Ethan Chue, CEO of Family Succession Advisors. With over 30 years of experience, Ethan helps business owners and families navigate estate and succession planning. He founded his firm to offer clear, unbiased guidance, turning complex jargon into simplified terms for the high net worth families. Ethan is a Singapore chartered accountant and a qualified trust and estate practitioner. He previously led wealth planning teams at global institutions, including Credit Suisse and Rothschild, and managed the Singapore trust companies of Standard Chartered Bank and JP Morgan. Our second guest is Yip Kai, also known as Kai, Senior Director of Client Advisory at Grandtag Financial Consultancy, Singapore. Kai specializes in high net worth insurance, helping clients strengthen financial security with tailored solutions and high-touch service. He began his career at Citibank and continues to stay at the forefront of the industry through ongoing professional development and active participation in forums and seminars, ensuring his clients always receive the most up-to-date and effective solutions. Thanks for being here, gentlemen. I have a big hit list of myths ready to go for you to debunk. So here we go.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kai.
Bye-bye.
All right, myth number 1. Estate planning is only for the wealthy. I often hear people say, oh, I don't have enough assets, no need to worry about this. Is estate planning really a luxury meant for only the rich? Or is it something that everyone needs to be thinking of?
I think estate planning is a responsibility, not a luxury, and maybe even more than a necessity. In fact, you could say that estate planning is even more important for the average person.
Why is that so?
I know of families where the sole breadwinner dies, and because the family's assets are only or mainly in, for example, a bank account of the sole breadwinner.
Oh.
When the sole breadwinner dies, the account is frozen and the family members cannot have access to the funds.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these families even have to resort to borrowing monies from their relatives for the living expenses whilst awaiting the completion of the estate probate process.
I see. So delays, isn't
Yes.
it?
So there could be delays.
Maybe you can share with us some, perhaps a painful experience that you've witnessed one of your clients go through because of this.
For many families, the estate plan is delayed, or the distribution of the estate is delayed. And very often when we talk about what happens when I die, family members have to appoint a lawyer, apply to the courts for a grant of probate to be able to distribute the assets. The problem is sometimes there's a delay, and the delay may not be caused by the lawyer or by the courts. The delay is with the family, because the family may not have a full idea of what the deceased own. For example, you might say, so what bank accounts did daddy have? Or, what other investments did mommy make? Right? So not having a list delays the process, because you have to spend time trying to dig through the files of the deceased family member. And sometimes things are done online nowadays. Bank accounts are done online. Or you could even have a cryptocurrency account which is actually virtual, right? And you may not have records of the account.
Yeah.
So that causes the delay.
Yeah. So not only is it a responsibility, it's how much do you really care for your loved ones,
That's
isn't
right.
it?
That's right.
It can start off with a very simple thing.
That's right. So you should at least have a plan in place. Of course, some families I speak to, they said, hey, my family is very simple. One spouse, 2 children, 3 dogs, right? There's no one within my family who would fight over my assets. But when the individual passes away, it could be a different situation.
That's right.
The children could be fighting over the assets of the father, of the mother. And sometimes it is not due to greed. Sometimes it's due to family members' perception that they should be entitled to what they feel is fair.
Yeah.
For example, a child might say, I think I have a right and I should inherit the family home because I lived there with mom and took care of her during the final years of her life. Right? So is that really what dad or mom wanted? Right? Very often that's where the dispute comes.
I see. And Kai, we move on to myth number 2. You know, we often hear this as well. Suitable for you because you're young and healthy.
Yep.
So a lot of our clients, we realize, they would say, I'm still too young. I'm still too healthy. I have time. I can do this later. Myth number 2 is always like an excuse, isn't it? At what point, Kai, does later become too late?
So I think this is probably one of the most dangerous myths around, that people will say that, I can do it later. I'm young. But a lot of people feel that for estate planning is about death. It's not about incapacity. What if suddenly I have a stroke, critical illness, or mental incapacity? We do not know about all these things that is going to happen. I could be suddenly walk down the road and the car bang me.
Oh no. Yeah.
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
So life still have to go on.
Yes.
So things happen unexpectedly that we do not know when it's going to happen, etc. When that happens, urgent decisions have to be made. My family has to know what kind of bank account that I have. Like what Ethan mentioned, that I could have some online accounts that my spouse don't even know about. So they have to make sure that if I'm incapacity, my medical bills, who are they going to look for? So all these are the small little things that my family will be stressed out about.
So planning is more about being in control.
Yep, correct.
Maybe you can share some experience that you had with some of the families or clients that you have advised before.
I do have a client who is at his 40s. He's active, that he goes to gym, sometimes do run with me time to time. So I recall a case that I have a client that is in his 40s, active, that goes to gym, running, successful. So just one fine day that he got into a stroke. So things go out of way where the family doesn't know what is going to happen. His family immediately feel stressed that he can't access to the funds, etc., because they do not know about his banking ID, password, etc. So they feel stressed in that point of view where funds, medical bills, all comes at the same time. Because it's also one of the business owner where creditors may comes after them for payment, etc. Because he is one of the key player in the business. So with that, he feels that he have the time to plan, but actually it's too late for that.
When we lose control because we didn't plan, our loved ones and also people who depend on us, the team that we have in our own businesses, also lose control. Yeah.
And to add to that, if I may, for some business owners, they are the only one controlling the shares of the company, and their spouses may not be involved at all. So when the main key person of the business, key driver of the business, is no longer around, you have your staff who are wondering what's going on. Some staff may leave You may have suppliers or vendors or people that you deal with suddenly, not carrying out the terms of whatever you agreed.
Yeah.
Right? And you have the family members wondering, what do I do? I know nothing about the business. I may own the shares eventually, but I'm really in a loss. So I think that's what we see with some families.
I see. Yeah. Very, very important. And a very dangerous myth to dispel, debunk right now. Yeah. Let's move on. Myth number 3. My family knows what I want. The classic assumption that, okay, my family knows my wishes, so I don't need any legal advice. Me and my family members, we have a verbal understanding. What a dangerous strategy, right, Ethan?
Yes. I mean, for a number of families, for many families actually, whatever arrangement or agreement that the parent might think they have, I would challenge it and say, have you really discussed this in detail with your children? Are you expecting your children or your family members to understand what your intentions are? Because in our culture, very often parents don't exactly share with their children what their plans are in terms of the future distribution of the assets in my estate. Right? What happens when I die? Who gets what asset? Right? And from the children's perspective, sometimes they don't ask, because if they ask, it almost feels like, what? You can't wait for me to die. You are after my assets already, right? And even for mom and dad on their deathbeds, right? Will the children actually ask, okay, mom, dad, just to be clear, your intention is to give the company shares to me, the jewelry to my sister, the car to brother, right? You don't have such conversations, right? So very often, these are not discussed. And in some cases, or for some families, what we also see is family members having, for example, joint bank accounts. Right? Dad or mom may have one joint bank account with a daughter, another joint bank account with a son. Let's say the joint bank account with the daughter has 5 million. The one with the son has 1 million. So when daddy dies, what was my intention? For that joint bank account with my daughter with 5 million cash in there, was it my intention to give the 5 million to my daughter and then $1 million to my son? Or was it just for convenience or just as a backup, as an arrangement to say, oh, at least you guys can still withdraw the funds that I set up the bank account, the joint bank account. And my intention actually is 5 million plus 1 million is 6 million to be divided equally, right? So what was my intentions? And many families have gone to court over this.
Yes.
That, oh, this was that intention, or this was mom's intention. And because they didn't have a plan, they didn't write down anything, they didn't have a will, then that would be an issue. Even for families who might have a will in place, right? Parents who might have a will in place, do they, during their lifetime, communicate their intentions or their wishes or what they provide in the will with their children? Do they have the family discussion and say, look, this is what happened, daddy's will says this or mommy's will says this, and after our lifetime, this is what you get, this is what your sister will get, this is what your brother will get. Very often, this is not done.
Yes.
Right? And it could be due to a couple of reasons, from the families that we see. Some families, they are wealthy, the children know that the family is wealthy, but the children may not know exactly how much the family has. So the parents' concern is, if I sit down during my lifetime, I sit down with my children, with my family members, and actually tell them this is what you're going to inherit in future, and the kids know that, hey, when daddy's gone, I'm going to inherit X millions. If daddy's not well and needs them to take care of you, would they perhaps take the position that I think daddy has lived to a ripe old age, I think it's time for him to go. I don't think we need to give him his medicine, for example, right? So that is what some families are generally concerned about.
This is like an assumption again in their mind, and this causes hesitation on their part to have sharing with their children.
That's what holds them back from sharing. Now, some other families, some other parents may have reasons to give different amounts to their children.
Yeah.
Right? So there was this lady who actually, she had 2 children, and she actually decided to give unequal amounts of her assets to her two children, right? So one child gets more, the other child gets less. And she didn't want to share this with them during her lifetime because it would have been a difficult conversation with the child who would have received less, right? So she didn't want that confrontation. And so, yes, she had a will in place, but then after she passed, then the children found out how much they were actually getting. And this caused friction between the two children, right? Because to the extent that the one who actually received less even tried to contest the will, right? And the two children to this date are no longer on speaking terms, right? So it doesn't mean that as a parent, right, you have to give your assets equally to all your children or all your family members because you may have your reasons for doing so, right? Some family members are just better at protecting their monies, or they could be in a situation where having too much wealth might be detrimental to them. Right? But I feel that it is useful, it's usually generally more beneficial to sit down with everyone, especially if you are giving different amounts to different people, and say, this is the reason why I'm giving you more or giving you less, for whatever your reasons are. And that, in my mind, would help to reduce conflict.
Yeah.
Because very often conflict arises because everybody's not sure, or in their own minds, they feel that was daddy's intention and that was mommy's intention.
Yes.
Maybe all feeling that they are right about it, right? Because that was not communicated.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes when things are ambiguous, when you don't have rules, people might try to think, I need to fight for my rights. I need to fight for my entitlement because otherwise I'm losing out and it's unfair to me. Right? And that usually causes conflict.
Thanks for sharing, because you need to communicate your wishes. And more often than not, we resort to a will for us to be able to put our wishes in a physical document for everybody to understand. But there's another myth that kicks in, that a will is enough. So many people think that having a will is, one and done. It's the finish line. Once I have a will, it's sorted. But it's actually not the case, right? Because once a will is signed, is there such a thing as one and done, Kai? Or is the will only a piece of the puzzle?
A will is probably that they will be able to be contest on, like what Ethan mentioned.
Yeah.
So can this 6 to 1 year timeline is being dragged later on? We will know. Because there are times when siblings may fight unequal share. Maybe one is at 60%, 70%, the other one is at 30, 40, we won't know. So these will be some of the cases that we have seen. So a will, I would say that is not a full picture, but it's a good stepping stone for them to take the initiative to at least they plan out something and at least a certain wish is being made over there.
Yes, yeah. And also, Ethan, there's this, what Kai mentioned, asset rich, cash poor. What's your take on it?
Well, I think, speaking about wills, my view is that a will is better than having no will. Because the will provides and contains my wishes, let's say, my wishes of how I will want my assets to be distributed. But the main problem with just having a will is that the assets in my own name will be frozen pending getting the grant of probate, which is the court order which allows the assets to be distributed. Right. So as Kai mentioned, that could take some months. And as we earlier mentioned, if the family members have to take some time to figure out what assets I actually held, right, then that strengthens, that delays the process, right? Lengthens out the whole process. So one other option is, instead of just having a will, you can also consider having a trust.
Yes. Okay.
Right? I know for some people will say, hey, a trust is expensive. Right? I think that's probably the next myth that we're going to get to.
A trust can be expensive, but that doesn't mean that it's only for the wealthy who can afford trusts. So, Ethan, with that, how do you address this misconception?
Having a trust does cost some money, but the fees and the costs for having a family trust has gone down considerably over the years. Right? So, to that extent, you don't have to be ultra or super wealthy to afford the trust. Right? So what's the trust actually?
Yeah.
Right? If you take a step back, a trust arrangement is one where the assets that I own are transferred to a trustee. Right? Legal ownership is transferred to the trustee, and the trustee will own and hold the assets for the benefit of the beneficiaries.
Yes.
Right? For example, my family members or my loved ones. The important thing is that the legal title on my assets are no longer in my name once I transfer it to the trust. And because of that, when I die, the assets are not frozen. Right? So within a short time, the trustees can make a distribution to my family members for their living expenses or education or medical needs without waiting for the grant of probate, without going through the probate process, because the assets are already held by the trustee. Right? So the objectives for families in setting up a trust could be avoiding this probate complications.
Yes.
Or another objective could be protecting the assets. Protecting the assets from potentially my creditors, right? Because it's already held in the trust. Or alternatively, if I have young beneficiaries or minor beneficiaries, or beneficiaries that I want to protect for, right? I may not need to have millions to want to think about setting up a trust, putting some monies into the trust, and then if something happens to me, the trustees will ensure that there will be monies distributed for the benefit of my young beneficiaries or minor beneficiaries, or sometimes there could be school fees to be paid, right? So the trustees can make those payments directly to the schools, for example.
Yeah.
So there are different reasons why families set up trusts, right? And we often hear the term trust fund babies.
Yes.
Right? So this refers to where family members enjoy a extravagant lifestyle, spend money lavishly because they are funded by monies from the family's trust fund. Right? And many families actually do ask this question: how do I avoid my children or my grandchildren being trust fund babies?
Yes.
Right? So what many actually do is, using a trust, they would provide that distributions they are made to even their adult children. Distributions they are made are sufficient only to ensure that the adult children can sustain, the daily living, right? So they won't starve, right? So an amount that's distributed every month or every year goes to the beneficiaries, to the children or grandchildren. But if the children or grandchildren want to enjoy a very lavish lifestyle, the amounts that are given are not enough for that, right? So the bulk of the monies may still lie with the trustees, and that sort of gives the children the reason or the need to still carve out a career for themselves, or to be gainfully employed.
Correct.
Right? So that is one way to do it.
There's still a certain amount of control on how you want your estate to be passed on to the next generation.
That's right. That's right. And for some families, the next generation may not know how to invest wisely. So you could have, through the trust arrangement, having the trust fund managed by professionals, maybe in a conservative manner, something that will generate sufficient liquidity to meet the liquidity needs of the family members, of the beneficiaries, but yet still, provide a certain degree of returns.
Yes.
So that can also be done.
They may have inherited the estate, but they may not have inherited the ability to be able to generate more or to invest as well as the patriarch or the matriarch of the family.
That's right.
So, Kai, from a consultant perspective, how do we aid our clients in terms of setting up this framework like what Ethan has mentioned?
So from a consultant perspective or using trust planning, it's more of to making sure clients get all the things, like be it that his assets and everything, back to all his wishes. Because the trust company, there are times where it helps the clients to do, like, for the funding for the education, for the children, etc. All these things. Because trust planning is a way that someone really do helps them to manage, rather than maybe some of the clients, they have a guardian or someone, their loved ones, to help them to manage, but will that funds really goes to them? To the beneficiary they want to?
Right.
We will know. Because they could say that, "Hey, I'm the guardian. I can, if there is this certain X amount, actually I can give a bit to them." We will know. We will know. So trust, make sure that things are being given equally based on what the client wishes.
Yeah. In terms of distribution and all these things.
Yes. So I would say that more of the control, more of clarity, and making sure that everything is in place as per what he or she decides to put in place.
But sometimes there may come a time wherein our client may have a change of heart, or certain life episodes will make them think twice about what they have cast in stone. So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing, no, when it comes to estate planning. For other clients that you serve, Ethan, can you explain more about why estate planning is not a set it and forget it kind of thing?
I think it's for reasons of changing family circumstances, right? So whether the client has a will in place or a trust has already been set up, where you have a letter of wishes given to your trustees, providing guidance, or you have insurance policies in place, things change, right? We all grow old, we all die, we all fall sick, and plans might change, right? And family members move to other countries, or my children might get married, they may get divorced, I might have new children, new grandchildren for that matter, right? So there has to be an ongoing review, right? I mean, from our perspective, we feel it's necessary. And sometimes I can see that from the client's perspective, after putting their initial plan in place, they would take the view that, okay, the heavy lifting is done, I've got the plan in place, and I don't want to think about it anymore, right? But you have to still consider, even if you don't change your will, you don't change any part of your trust structure or your arrangement or your distribution mechanism, it's important to still consider and stop and pause. What has changed, or are there any changes in circumstances that warrant a review, right, of my plans?
Yes.
Another example is, for example, we may have family members who decide to migrate, right? So sometimes we have children whom families send overseas to study, to the US, to the UK, to Australia to study, and the children might, after graduation, decide to settle down there, right, and get a job there and have a family of their own in that jurisdiction. Now, many of these popular, so-called more developed countries often have higher tax rates. Okay, so tax is something to consider.
That's a very good point.
Do you have, would you, by becoming a resident of a particular country, as a result of that, you become subject to higher taxes?
Yeah.
Right? In the past, many Asian families like to apply for US permanent residency, the US green card. But some of them, they only realize after they got a green card that as a result of having the green card or US permanent residency status, that you automatically become a worldwide income is subject to US tax. Right?
Dear.
So that's something that they may not have thought about. Right? But that also impacts your estate plan. If at some point I want to give my assets to my child, and that child is living or residing in a high tax jurisdiction, would the income that is generated from that portfolio of the assets be subject to higher tax? What happens if my child passes away? Would there be higher estate tax or inheritance tax? Right. So these are situations that whenever there's a change in a family situation, or where they are or where they live, then you have to review the plan.
Now, this gets me thinking, not only do our families grow, and they may even grow worldwide, become globally located, our assets and our wealth also grows, isn't it?
That's right. So now the world has become smaller, and also from an investment perspective, many families would say, nope, I'm not just having assets in Singapore. right? Or Singapore real estate is so expensive. So I want to look to invest in other countries, right? So whether you have investments or real estate or your own shares of companies anywhere in the world, you might want to stop and think, okay, before I go into the purchase, before I acquire the shares, before I acquire the property, what's the best way to hold the property? Should I buy the property in my own name? Is that better or worse for me considering the taxes in that country? Should I use a holding company? Should I use a trust structure? What's the best way to do it? And get advice before you actually do make
And
the
all
purchase.
these goes back to, okay, you need to revisit your estate
Estate planning,
planning.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's true. Oh, a lot of things to consider. Yeah.
Yes, that's
And
right.
this is why it cannot be, okay, set it and forget it. So whether you have a will or a trust, of course, insurance plans, these are all living documents, isn't it, Kai? It's not a chore that you can just set aside because, oh, I'm done. There's a check mark on my task list, to-do list. What's your take on this, Kai?
So, yes, all these things I would say that like a trust, a will, or even insurance in particular, that we should not just set it and just forget it. Our life will evolve.
Yeah.
Like what Ethan mentioned, we could have more assets.
Yes.
We could have my child become adults.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, family may grow. There are times when things start to get evolved. So basically, once we set it, and then if we do not in place new things, things will be so-called updated
Yeah.
in a sense. So we should be constantly review on this on a timely basis, I would say. So as us as a consultants on a regular basis, we will still meet clients to have some maybe coffee sessions, get to know them. Is there any life-changing?
Yeah.
Just in case that if they want to have any necessary change in some of the documents in their policies or maybe their nominations, we can help the clients along the way also.
So starting the conversation is always very important so that if a family finds that these topics are taboo, Ethan, how do you help to initiate the dialogue? You don't want it to be a confrontation, right?
Yeah. So very often, even though we're talking about estate planning, if we feel that the clients are a little bit, sensitive about the issue, we don't necessarily always ask about do you know what happens when you die, right? Some of the questions that I might ask is, so what's your plan for retirement, right? As you grow older, and do you plan for your children to take over your business? Or for them, are you going to teach them to learn how to manage the family's investment portfolio, right? So more of planning for the future type of questions. And what I found useful is also sharing stories, right? Families like to hear stories. And stories actually sometimes bring out what might go wrong, right? So it could be stories which are publicly available in the media. Nowadays, you hear more and more stories of family members suffering because of the lack of planning, or it could be stories from my own personal experience with other families, of course, without any confidential names or identifiable information, right? And then it is less about telling the client, look, this is what will go wrong if you don't plan, but more of, look at what happened to other families. Would you also like to plan and avoid this for your family?
All right, as a wrap up, if you had to translate this entire complex topic into one actionable thought or key takeaway for our audience, Ethan, what would it be?
Well, estate planning can sound very complex and complicated, but as with most things, let's take it one step at a time, right? So I would say maybe just one action point for families who are wondering, how to go about estate planning is first have your list of assets and liabilities, right? That will be the starting point, and that will facilitate discussions with your advisor on what are your options going forward.
Kai?
I would say that estate planning isn't about fear. It's all about love, clarity, and making life easier to our loved ones. Remember, the best estate planning doesn't start from documents. It starts with the decisions to act. So speak to your financial advisor now.
Thank you, Ethan and Kai, for
Thank you.
debunking these myths. And to our listeners, remember that estate planning isn't a luxury reserved for the few. It's a responsibility for anyone who wants to lead with clarity and care. A will is a vital start, but it's only one piece of a much larger legacy. At the end of the day, clarity is kindness. Your family will thank you for the peace of mind you provide today. For more conversations on wealth and the legacy you're building, subscribe to the Grandtag podcast on YouTube or Spotify. Follow our journey on social media to stay connected. I'm Barbara. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Grandtag podcast, Conversations on Wealth and Legacy.